morning, Hemant. Good morning, Rishabh. So until others join, is there any question from the previous session? I know that the notebook I had shared had the sharing issues, which I corrected only in the evening, so you may not have got the time to go through that. But if there are any questions, then we can take up to start with. Good morning, Subbarao.
Good morning.
So we'll start the session, let others join, and then because Reena was interested in knowing what kind of projects we would be doing, so we will come back to this when Reena joins. Just to do a brief recap on what we started discussing yesterday was the pandas as a framework for data manipulation. So we had mentioned earlier that if it is just a list or one-dimensional data, or what we also call as vector, then the manipulation is very simple with the Python basic libraries, or we use NumPy. But all of us have worked on Excel earlier, and for two-dimensional data structures, it is much easier to work with pandas because pandas is a library specifically created for handling the two-dimensional data. And that's where wherever we can put the data into two-dimensional Excel-like structure, our preference would be to use pandas because the operation manipulation is fairly easy and it's a fairly scalable system. It means that even when we future we will handle certain large amount of data, panda scales up very nicely. The other way is to also handle the entire thing through NumPy. NumPy can also handle this. NumPy is much faster compared to pandas, but pandas is much easier to use. Its commands are very, its syntax and commands are very user friendly. So in our course, and even the otherwise, data scientists prefer to use pandas when it comes to manipulation of data of the uh, whenever it's available in a 2D framework. A few things that you would be hearing very frequently is the data scientist is supposed to do data munging. This data munging, we need to understand what is this data munging. Data munging is that when we receive data, suppose even in a corporation, data about the employees or different or data about the production which is happening in the factories would be available in different places. So, for example, the basic employee data may be available with the HR, but which are the projects that you are currently working on and which are the projects that you have earlier worked on that may be available in your project management system. Similarly, if you have a system of getting the feedback from the customer on performance of the people or feedback on the performance of employees, that may be available in another system. So data munching is that bringing all this data together and creating a holistic data set based on certain identifiers. That's called data munching, which will be very important in many of the cases because the real life problem is that many a times the data would not be available in one place and we will have to collate data using certain identifiers. So that's the data munching process. The data cleaning is required because a lot of data that we receive, many a times the data would not be in a shape that we can use for computing. And there are different steps in data cleaning process. Once we take our first project, we will take it up. But just to give a summary of that, that you may have certain missing data. So I receive data from different sources and some data is missing. Now, how do we really treat that? Do we remove those rows or columns where the data is missing, or do we replace that with an mean or median or mode, the average? So also there could be certain data elements which are which we consider as outliers. So suppose if taking the we are doing the analysis of height of people, so there would be very few people would be above say 7 feet of height, and there would be very few people who will be below among the men very few people would be below 5 feet of height. So if there is someone who is below 5 feet or above 7 feet, we'll consider that outliers. So the issue would be that do we retain those outliers in our data or do we remove them? So that part would be called the data cleaning process. And data analysis, that would be the key thing that data scientists would be doing, that how do we really uh, make sense of data, or how do we get analytics or insight from data. And for doing that kind of analysis, different types of data modeling that we'll be handling, and all of these pandas does very uh, efficiently. So we'll spend some more time on pandas. Yesterday we saw a simple process of creating a pandas data frame, because all the operations in pandas, the main data construct or the main data format that pandas uses is the data frame, which is, as we were explaining earlier, that it's just like an Excel sheet. There are certain other formats like a series. We will come across them whenever it requires, but the main thing is that we need to convert data into data frame to be able to use the power of pandas. Yesterday, we created the data frame with the help of different lists that we had created earlier, the list of items, the list of values, the list of weight and numbers. But there are many other ways that data frame can be created. It can be created from different other data types like dictionary or a NumPy array or a series. We will come to those things later on. I don't want to burden the entire thing right now, but just remember that we created a data frame with the list, but the data frame can be created with dictionary, array, and series. We'll come to those things as we go along. We saw that once we have the data frame, then how do we slice the data frame? If I want to just see a few selected rows or a few selected columns, how do we do that? That we did yesterday. Today, We will take up the backpack problem once again, and then in the process of doing that, we'll also go to certain other concepts in pandas. Uh, some of these concepts we have seen yesterday. We saw what is index and what is column. Index is nothing but the row numbers or a name or a number given to the rows, and columns are the names and or the index given to the columns. Transpose function we saw yesterday. Adding the new columns also we saw yesterday. We will see some other functions as we go today. So let's go back to our backpack problem which we were trying to solve. So yesterday we talked about the different steps that we need to, from the computational thinking perspective, what would be the different steps in solving that problem of backpack. That if I have, so it actually boils down to the issue that if I have certain number of items, and if I put a constraint, and putting that constraint is a real life scenario, because the first question that we ask is that suppose if a person has to go from Hyderabad to Delhi, what are the questions that we would ask? And naturally, we ask the questions about different constraints that we would be talking about. For example, how much money he has, how much he wants to spend on the travel, how much time he has for travel. Depending upon that, the selection of the best route would be done. And that's the real life problem, because if there are no constraints, then the solution is always much simpler. The solution becomes difficult only when there are constraints, and there are constraints always in the real life. And that's why we have an objective function which we want to maximize or minimize, like maximize the value or minimize the cost. And we have a constraint imposed on that. For example, in this case, we were saying that constraint is on the weight, that how much can be filled in the backpack. So all the data points we had listed in the form of different lists. So yes, so the question is that do we need to import NumPy and pandas in the beginning while we start the code? It's always safer to do all the imports in the beginning, which you may be using earlier. So when we say import NumPy, just to repeat what we have discussed, we are importing a library called NumPy. So all the functions, so if you want to use the functions which is there in the NumPy library, or if you want to use the functions which is there in pandas, and there are many other libraries that we'll talk about as we go along, we need to import them first, because until you have imported, it will not perform the functions which is required. If there is any function which is required from pandas, it will say that these functions are not available. Just let me, I have just started it, not really imported anything. Let me try to use some pandas library function, like say pd.dataframe. This is a pandas, this function is coming from pandas. So if I want to operate this, it says that pd is not defined. So it means that there is no library from where it has been done. Now, if I import it and then come here, then you will see other problems. It will say that items, value, weight, and numbers, these are not defined because I have not initialized them. So let's try doing that. It will show a different error. So if we do that, now you see that PD is not defined, that error is gone. It is saying that name item is not defined because I have not run the cell in which the item, value, numbers, all these things were defined. So if I define that and then come here, it should problem. So you see, that's why you need to import all the libraries. So that's the one of the best practices that you would do. And it's as we go along, you will see that the number of imports that we do goes on increasing, and especially when we move into the machine learning, then we need to import lot many libraries, and that is one of the key things that we will have to learn, because with the access to the libraries, we need the our dependence on coding substantially, because these libraries already contain lot of things that we don't need to really code for. And therefore it would be an important learning for us, or important things to learn as we go along, as to which are the libraries available. In those libraries, which are the functions available for performing different operations. So that will reduce your coding substantially. And it is in that context that understanding the different types of libraries will become very important for all of us. Okay. So coming back to the backpack problem, we said that the simple thing would be to apply the brute force of computing. So we take all the possible combinations, compute the weight, compute the value, then we eliminate all those options where the weight is more than the given limit, and then we see that which one is having the highest value. That could be the simplest way of doing. But then we immediately come across what is called as the combinatorial explosion. That is, if you have uh, large number of things and they can take multiple values, then the number of combinations that you may have to handle will be enormous. And in this case, with this just eight types of variables, or eight different items that we have, we saw that if you want to apply the brute force, we may have to do about 288 million combinations. And as data scientists, when you go into the real life, you will be dealing with not just eight different variables, but you will deal with thousands and millions of those variables, and then it becomes practically impossible for even the supercomputers to handle that kind of data. And that's where the role of the data scientist comes in, to bring in their computational thinking and say that can we really solve this problem by a more efficient manner? And when we say more efficient manner, can we do that with much lesser number of computation, and also formulating the problem? So we had said that there would be 4 steps if you want to formulate the problem. Since we want to maximize the value and there is a constraint on the weight, we will first find out which item gives me the highest value per unit of weight. Then I will sort it, go to the top, take that item first, until either I run out of space or I run out of the item. If I run out of the item, then I go to the next most valuable item in terms of value per unit. And if I run out of space, then my problem is solved because the constraint is met. So until I run out of space, I'll keep repeating this. Now, this process we have listed out in terms of the formulation of problem in words. Now I need to give the instruction to the computer that how do I communicate this to the computer? I am saying that there are 4 distinct steps. Now, how do I make the computer do the same thing? So we had taken a few steps yesterday, and we will do the remaining ones today. So yesterday, we had first created the data frame because we said it becomes much easier for us to manipulate data. Then we transpose that data. Then we said that, okay, now the column names are just 0, 1, 2, 3. It will be easier if we give name to it. So we give the name to the data. So either we can give these names later on, or we can give these names even while we are creating the data frame. So now I have it in a very similar form, in which if I was trying to solve this problem in Excel, I would have put all this data like this. So this one is your Excel header for the column, and this is all the row numbers that you get in Excel. Having done that, we said that now let's find out. So having got my data frame, the first thing that you want to do is to find out the which items gives me the highest value per unit of weight. And then we saw that in the data frame, by doing this operation, we can combine two things. We can introduce or we can add one more column. At the same time, we can populate that with certain values. So with this syntax, what we are telling pandas is that in the data frame df, add a column by name value by weight, and the values in this column will be equal to whatever is the data in the value column and divide that by weight column. So if we, when we learn a language, now we are translating the human language, the way that we will speak, into the language, into the Python language, or the language with which we will now communicate with the uh, our computer. So if we translate this into our natural language, it will translate to take data frame df, add a column by name value by weight, and that will be equal to, or every entry in that will be equal to, value divided by weight. And that's what we obtain here. So if you see here, the value is 5000, weight is 1 kg. So the value per kg for item A is 5000. Similarly, the value per kg for item B is 2 lakhs, because the weight for every half kg of weight, the value is 1 lakh. Now, having got that data, we want to arrange it in a manner that I get the highest value by weight on the top. And that would be the first thing that we will select. That's what we had done even earlier. So now let's read this in our natural language. What we are saying is that take up the data frame df and sort the values. That is what we say, df dot sort values. Now the very natural question would be that now you're asking me to sort, and there are so many columns there. What do I sort it with? And that's where we define sort by value by weight. Other two things are optional, as we have said, that the default way that it sorts is ascending. If you say ascending is equal to false, it will sort it in descending manner. And also we said that now when we are sorting, we can ignore the index. It means that whatever was the previous index, ignore that and give the new index number. These two are optional thing, but we have given for the ascending one, we had to give because we wanted the data to be sorted in the descending order. So again, just try to see whenever we are giving a syntax as to what is the translation of that syntax in the natural language. And then you will be able to do the translation from our natural language to the Python language very easily. So here, just let's see what this syntax reads like. It reads like select df data frame and sort it by value. And which value? Value by weight. Now sorting can be done ascending, descending. You sort it in descending order because ascending is equal to false. And then ignore the previous index and give the new index. And this df is equal to, that says that having done that, whatever is the new value, you put all these new value into df. It means that whatever was df earlier, so if you see before sorting, df is like this. This is the unsorted df. After that, we say that you sort it and replace df. That is what is df. Now, if I don't do that, now df will remain as it is before sorting. So it will show me the result of sorting, but that sorted data has not been stored into the variable df. So if I want to work with df, it will still having the old data. And therefore, if you want to do any operation and if you want to work with that later on, you must store it to the uh, variable, either with the same name or a different name. Otherwise it will not take the value. So let's try doing that. So I will sort it, but I am not storing it to df. Okay, so let's do it once again. So I create the df here, because the transpose and all has been done earlier. So let me start with here. We define the items once again. Then we create the data frame. We transpose it. We give a column name. We create a new column. And now I am asking to sort but not store. And then I am asking show me df. So you see, although I have sorted, I still, when I ask it to display df data frame, then it still shows me the same thing which was done earlier. So although it has sorted, now if I want to see the result of this sorted one, to see, it is showing me the result, how it will look like after sorting, but I have not really stored it. After that, I ask it to display it. It will show me the previous value, the unsorted value. And therefore, since I am going to do the operations with df even later on, and I want the sorted df, I will assign the result of sorting back to df. And then after I ask the system to show df, it is showing me like this. The question is, if we are calculating value by weight, but available weight in count is not equal to per unit weight. Okay. So the question would be that so we have to work with whatever data is given to us. Okay. Now the way that we have said the data is given to us is we have taken each value, each item ABCD. If we see how this all these lists, what do they say? The first list tell me what are the different items. Second list is telling me what is the weight of those items. Third one is telling me what is the value of those items and not the value in terms of kg or in terms of per unit. And the last one is saying that the how many numbers do I have? I mean, how many units of A I have, how many units of B I have. So in this case, since the data is given like this, we want to find out what is the weight per unit. So if the data itself is given to you in the form, which is not just the value, but value per unit, then we don't need to do that operation. So which operation do I do is actually depending upon what is the data that we have at hand. Does that answer your question, Rishabh? So we come back here, we have done the sorting. Now, what we need to do is we will go to the first one, and what is the logic? Start putting the first item into my bag until either I run out of space or I run out of the item. So I have only one item, so I'll put that, and then I see that that was only 100 grams or 0.1 kg. So I still have 19.9 kgs. So I'll go to the next one and I'll start putting one by one. So by the time I put all the 5, I would have consumed 2.5 kg. So total weight becomes 2.6 kg, and I still have 17.4 kg more. Then I come to the third one, and I will be able to put two of so the weight is 5 kg. I will be able to put 3 of these items, which will comprise of 15 kg. So 15 plus 2.6, 17.6 kgs I would have consumed. I can't put a I can't put the fourth item here, because that will take the weight more than 20, and I put the constraint that I can't carry more than 20, so I can't take more than 3. That's how we will go. But now, how do I put that into my logic? We'll come to some of these functions of, and we had yesterday discussed the slicing and all that. We'll come to that. We'll come back to that. Let's come to how do we pass this instruction to the machine. And this is where we got introduced to the for loop, or we are getting introduced to the for loop for the second time. First time we were trying to compute how many combinations are possible. So if you recall from that discussion, for is one of the what we call as the control flow structures. It means that we control the flow of our logic with different loop structures. When we say loop structure, what does it mean? When I want the machine to do an operation again and again or multiple times, then I have to give the instruction like do this until you meet the constraint, or do it n number of times, or do it until some condition is met, or do it only if this condition is met. So these are the things which are the control flow. Okay. So let's spend some time on the control flow. So the first kind of control that we can do is if and else if. And in pandas, you have a third kind of syntax also, which is called elif, which is short for else if. Okay. So under what circumstances I will use elif? Suppose I have a list of names and I want to find out whether a given name is there in the list or not. And then I want the computer to print that if the person is in the names, then print the person is present. Otherwise, say it is not present. Let's see how we will compute that. So I open the worksheet. The first thing I need to do is connect. But even if you don't click consciously on connect, even if I click on the play button or run button here, if it is not connected, it will first start connecting. So you don't really need to go and explicitly connect it. So it has first connected and then it has run it. Now see what we are doing here. What we want to print is based on certain condition. So if the condition is met, then do something. If the condition is not met, then do something else. That's what the if else condition or control flow structure is, which is very simple. And in Python, you will see, since some of you who have done the programming in Java and all that, you would know that there are certain many other constructs that you have to follow. For example, if should be followed by a parenthesis, and then everything start with braces and all that. Here, none of those things are required in pandas. We give the condition and then we give a colon. So the moment it sees colon, it means that the condition has now ended. And now I should receive the instruction of if this condition is met, what do I do? And that you will see in all the loop conditions that we give, or whenever we define the functions or the classes, this colon will always be in the end. And that's a signifier, or that's an identifier for the computer that now this condition has ended here. Now I will start receiving, or I will start executing the instructions if this condition is met. Now the next set of instruction can be given either with a tab or with 4 spaces, but that you don't really need to do, because the moment you give this colon and enter, it will immediately go to the place from where the statement should start. If you do like this, where the print command and the if is in the same column, or starting place is the same, then it will not function. It will give you an error. So it must be indented, and that indent you can do just by a tab. So let's understand this. What is the instruction we are passing to the computer? We are saying if person in names. Now by now we are familiar with this language, that when we are saying person in names, names is a list, and whatever is the value of the person, now it will start looking into the list. And if that condition is true, it means that whatever is the, so person is a variable, I have assigned a value of Vinay to the person, and therefore whenever now I use the variable person, it will carry the value of Vinay. So now it says if person in names, it means that it is going and looking into names. What is names? Names is another variable which is a list. So it is now looking for the person Vinay, or it is looking for the value which is assigned to person, that is Vinay, into the list which has been assigned a name by the name of the list we have given as names. So it will look for this. If it is found, then it will be true. So see the output of if person in names, if it is true, then print person is present in the list. When we say else, it says that if it is not true, then you come and do this. Okay. Now, if I change this value of the person to Ram, now it should print Ram is present in the list. That is how the conditional control flow happens. So at many places you would like to perform things if a condition is met, and at perform something else or do something else if the condition is not met. Now let's see what was that elif here, which was else if. So we come to the second one, and here I have used again input. So you can input a name, enter the person to find. Now I am saying here Ram. Okay. Now since I am saying person is equal to input and then enter person's name, whatever I have entered, that becomes the value of the person. Now there are three lists here. So there are three lists which are which is containing three different sets of names. Names 1 is the first list, and that has Ram, Shyam, and Mohan, and so on. So what I'm asking the computer to do is that if person in names 1, then print person is present in first list. But since I have three lists, I am asking it that else, it means that if the first condition is false, then evaluate the second condition and then say else if, or elif in short, person in names 2, then print person is present in second list. Similarly, I go to third list, and in the end, that means that if none of these conditions are met, if none of the first three conditions are met, none of these things are met, then print person is not present in the list. Okay, that's how the if, elif, and the else structure would work. So I can evaluate. So here what is happening is I am evaluating a condition. If that condition is true, then this. Otherwise, evaluate the second condition. If that condition is met, then do this. Then evaluate the third condition, and you can keep going on and on and on if you have multiple conditions to evaluate. And if none of the above conditions are met, then in the end you say yes, else. So let's run this once again. It is asking me the name. If I say here Vinay, then Vinay is not in any of the list, and my expected answer should be that person is not present in the list. So as I enter, it says Vinay is not present in the list. And we'll just take one more example of say Joe. If I say here Joe, then it should tell me that Joe is present in the third list, and that's what it does. So that's the one type of the flow structure that we'll deal with. Then we work with the second kind of control flow structure, which is while loop. So when do we use while? So we saw here that in the else if, we were going on evaluating condition, and then we perform certain action. But suppose an action is to be repeated. That is, I have a list and I am asking the computer to go and print the list one by one. So the same action has to be repeated again and again until a condition is met. So the main difference would be that here one action is performed only once. So if person is met, I do this. But if I have to perform the same action again and again, then I will use either a for loop or a while loop. Now that's also very intuitive, not very difficult to understand. What I am saying is that I am taking a variable 0, and I am saying that while the value of that variable is less than the length of names 1. Now this syntax also we have worked with earlier. It will only tell me how many items are there in names. So it will take the names 1 the list, and names 1 list has 3 different elements. So the length of names 1 will be 3. So it is saying, it is now we are translating this into our natural language, which says that while this number, or while the value of the variable I is less than 3, what do? I print that I print the ith element of names I. So these things also we have seen earlier when we were discussing about slicing, that if I take a list and then within the bracket I give a number, it will show me the element or the value of the element which is present at that index number. So maybe let me introduce one line of code here, and just to recall a few things. Length of name 1 is how many elements we have, so it shows 3. So this will be replaced by 3. So what I'm saying is that while the value of this variable is less than 3, let's now say here names 1 is my list, and if I say here 0, what should we answer? The answer should be Ram, because Ram is the first element, or at the 0 index in the list names 1. So if I say here, it should give me Ram. That is what we are saying here, that while the value of the variable is less than 3, then print. Now this value of I is to start with is 0, because that is what we have initialized. So when it comes for the first iteration, the value is 0. And then it says that names at the 0th index, it will print the name. And then I enhance I with one more. So I will become 1 now. So after it prints Ram, the value of I will become 1, because I am saying I is equal to I plus 1. You remember this structure? So that means I is equal to I plus 1. So when it comes here, then the value of I is 0. Now the value of I will become 1. And then it goes back and evaluates this condition. So then it will say that it will evaluate 1 is less than 3, which is true. So if it is true, then it will come and perform this function. And at this point of time, the value is I. So it will go and select the item which is at the index I. Then I becomes 2, because I am saying I is equal to I plus 1. And at this point, I was 1. So 1 plus 1 becomes 2. Then it goes and evaluates this condition once again and says that 2 is less than 3. And then it will print the next name. Then I becomes 3. It comes here, and this condition is now not met because 3 is not less than 3. So if this condition is not met, or if this condition becomes false, then it will exit. Okay. So let's see. So it prints Ram, Shyam, Mohan. But if I go and change and add that, say, one more name, Krishna.
Hello.
Yes, please.
In Python, there is no debugging option. So that we see in a step by step.
Yeah, so that was something that we had discussed, is that Python is an interpreted language. It means that the compiling and running of the function or whatever command that we are giving in the each cell, we don't have to compile separately. And therefore, if there is a mistake when you run it, it will show in the bottom. And that's how we debug. So we don't have to compile and debug. When we run it, it will debug by itself. I mean, the errors would be shown here, and then we go and correct it.
Okay, thank you.
So now there are four names. Now I don't have to change anything because the length names one will now become four, and it will print all the four. So it will go on doing or performing this action until this condition becomes false or this condition is not met. That is the while loop. Now, suppose here I give this equal to, and that will also now you see the debug functionality, the error is being shown here itself. Now let's try to understand what this error is. So it says that list index out of range. It means it is trying to print something. The system is asking it to print something which is out of range or out of the index that we are defining here is out of bound. So it is not able to find that in the list. What has happened here? It was working until I said it was I is less than the length of names. Now, if I saying is less than or equal to, it is showing me error. It first prints the four names and then shows, and the fifth one, it shows me error. Where do you think that error is coming? So that's how. So the 2 points to illustrate here that the moment you have an error, it shows here with all the descriptions. So you can find out the error here, and then you can go and correct in the cell and then run this again. So if I correct this here and run this again, the error is gone. And that's where debugging is so simple in Python. You don't have to compile and then run it, and then you find the errors, then you go and fix, again compile. The entire process of the code compile, debug, correct is gone. And that's where it's much more efficient from that perspective. So now let's attempt answering this question, that if I am introducing this equal to, less than equal to, it is showing me an error. Anyone is able to locate why that error is coming? The error is also shown here, list range, list index out of range.
4 is not less, when I value is 4, 4 is not less than equal to 4. 4 is only equal to 4. No?
Yeah, so why is it giving me an error? Because I had four items. The value of the length names one is now 4. What is happening is that even though now it comes and it tries to find out the element in the names one list at the index 4, but as we said that the index count starts from 0. So if you see I have these 4 elements, so Ram is at the index 0, Shyam is at index 1, Mohan is at index 2, Krishna is at index 3, and there is nothing at index 4. So the length of this list is 4. But if we want to find out something at the index 4, it will not show anything because the index count starts from 0. So it will show you something at place 0, 1, 2, 3, but not 4. And that's why if I give here as less than equal to 4, the I value has become 4, which is equal to 4. So this condition is still valid, and therefore it will try to perform the next line. But when it goes to perform the next line, it is looking for the element at the index 4 in the list names 1, and it does not find. That's what the error is. And this problem you will come across several times, because we have got used to thinking the any count starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas every time that you come across the index, not just in pandas but in many other languages, the indexes will start from 0. That's something that mistake you will do many times, and after you commit that mistake 2 or 3 times, you will learn that when we are talking about an index, the index will start from 0. So that is the while structure. It means that while this condition is true, go on doing whatever command is follows it. Now the next question would be that if I don't enhance this I with 1 every time, what will happen? And this is also a problem that you will come across several times. Suppose I don't do this. What is the problem that you are expecting? What would happen? The value I have initialized I with 0, it will evaluate the option. This condition is true. It will come and print the name at the 0th index. I do nothing, and therefore it will go back again here. What is the value now? It is again 0. And therefore, there will be never a situation where this condition will not be met. And therefore, it will go into what we call as the infinite loop. It means that never there will be a condition where this becomes false, and therefore it will never exit this loop. Let's try doing that. So I'll not enhance it. It has been initialized to 0. And let's see what happens. You saw that? So it will go on printing Ram, 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 Ram until now, and it will never stop. So many times, if there is this kind of bug, it will lead you into an infinite loop, because this while condition. So whenever you're writing a while condition, you must be very careful that you should not enter into an infinite loop. And that will become, that does not really affect you when you do the for loop, because in the for loop, the numbers would be limited. The number of iteration will always be limited. But in the while loop, you must ensure that it does not go into an infinite loop. The other thing that you saw, that it was going into infinite loop, it will go on printing, it will never stop. And therefore, if I wanted to stop it, or if I wanted to interrupt the operation of this command in the cell, I went and clicked here. So while it is running, if you want to interrupt, you can come and click here and it will stop. Okay. So that's the while loop. A similar thing will be for loop, but in the for loop, the number of iterations is being defined.
Hello.
For example, I can say for name in names. Let's
Hello.
understand this one also here. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, tell me.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, in a while loop, greater than and less than is there. So that means a while loop check both the condition, or a single condition true will then allow. That
Yeah.
time you do, yeah.
So here we are giving a single condition, but you can add conditions here. So here, if I want to add one more condition, I could add one more condition, say that while I is less than length and something else and something else. So since we are just starting it, I am showing you a single condition here, but we can add multiple conditions here. So I can say while I is, or let's try doing that. So here, if I say here n is equal to 1, and n is less than 2. So when we start, the n is less than 2. This condition also should be met. So at least you should print the first name. There is no bug in the code, so why it is not printing? So first time itself it is exiting. I'm just trying to find out why it is exiting. Okay, I'll just look into what is the problem here. But you could put other conditions also here, and not just in while, but even in if here, we are giving one condition to be evaluated. You can give multiple conditions to be evaluated. And whatever is the answer to whatever, if the evaluation of multiple conditions, if that leads to an answer as true, then this would be performed. If it is false, then this would be performed. Now here we come across that if there are say multiple conditions, one is true, the other is false, how would the system treat that? So we go to the what we had discussed as the Boolean operation. So if it is true and true, it will be true. If it is true and false, the value would be, so if we have say two conditions, one is true, one is false, and we have given the condition as and. So condition 1 and condition 2, if both are true, the output would be true. If we say condition 1 and condition 2, when we evaluate condition 1, it is true, the second one is false, and the joining is and, it will become false. If we say condition 1 or condition 2, then if either of them is true, it will be true. So when we are giving the condition here, the multiple conditions
Hello.
can be given. Yeah.
No, no, I am asking for I greater than equal to len. You done last few minutes before. That time only I greater than equal to 4. Suppose length is 4. And I value is also 4, and here is a sign greater than and equal to. Then only one condition will be applied, or both will be checked.
Here, see, the condition is only here, and the way it works is that it will evaluate this condition. If this condition is true, it will proceed to perform the next action, otherwise it will exit. So let me print the value of I also. So let me print that as f string, and then as we are taking the variable here, we are putting I. Now we will say here value of I is this, and name at index I is so I have not closed the quote here.
You put the dot at the last one.
Yeah. So the closure of the quote actually should come here. Good. So I'm so happy that some of you are recognizing where the mistake is happening. So you see what is happening here. So in the first iteration, it is saying value of I is 0 and name at index 0 is Ram. We are fine with that. Then in the second iteration, the value of I becomes from 0, it becomes 1 because we are saying I is equal to I plus 1. We are saying value of I is 1 and name at index 1 is Shyam. That's how it is going. And the last iteration it is doing is 3. Now, after this iteration, after printing this output, now it goes for I is equal to I plus 1. So I becomes 4. After it has printed, then this command would be executed. So now I becomes 4. And then it goes and evaluates this. And it says that 4 is less than 4. So 4 is less than 4. That becomes false. And therefore, it will exit. Now, when I put this condition, all the 4 is getting printed. Yeah. And now it becomes 4. Now it evaluates this condition again. And this condition is true because 4 is less than or equal to 4. That condition will be true. Now that it is true, it will take up the next line for execution. But when it is going to next line for execution, it is not able to find names I, the fourth, the element at the fourth index in names I, because names I has only 0, 1, 2, 3. You got me?
But this, this is why we encounter an error here, because 4 is less than or equal to 4.
Yes.
Fine. So if the fourth index is not there, shouldn't it just return a message that 4 is out of the index length or something like that?
No, see, so the condition that we have given is just a pure numerical value evaluation. So when we are seeing here names 1, we are not even asking the system to evaluate that whether the fourth. So in the system, the length of names 1 is 4, isn't it? Or
yes, got it.
let's see here, we'll store this value to another variable, names 1, and rather than saying putting it here, I'll say why I is less than length. So the value of first I'm asking to print what is the value of this variable called length. That value is being printed as 4. Now if you see length for the system, these two are just numbers. I goes on changing from 0 and 1, and length is always fixed as 4. So it will just evaluate this condition and say, is 1 less than 4? Is 2 less than 4? Is 4 less than 4? That's what it will do. And if that is true, then it goes to perform the next one. The system doesn't have the intelligence that what your intent was. The system, that's the difference between the, in the natural language, when we communicate between two of us, we are able to gather what your intent was, but the machines don't really understand the intent. It just executes what you have told it to do. So what I have told the machine to do is to evaluate a condition that compare the value of I with the value of len. And if it is true, then go and perform this action. So it will obey me diligently, and it is saying that when we give the condition as equal to 4, it says that 4 equal to 4, that condition is still true, and therefore I'll go and execute the next one. But when I go to execute the next one, I have to find out names at the 4th index. So the element at the 4th index in the names list does not exist, because what I have is only 0, 1, 2, 3. And therefore, it will show that I am not able to execute, there is an error. And that's the error what it would be shown here. Len is a command word. Which is actually 1.
Print len 1. Only len is there.
And here it is showing the error at the len 1 itself. Just
In print len 1. Len 1.
it's saying int object is not.
In print, you have to write len 1.
But if you see, the error is coming in the previous line itself. So if you see, this is the error which is being shown here. So it means that it's showing that error is here itself. 1 minute. Come on. I think the value has been assigned earlier to len, and that's why the len has become an integer. Now it is not allowing me to do the operation on the integer. Just so this len is getting treated as an integer now. On integer, I can't make a call. Just This is surprising because this
After len, space is required, I think so. Len space
the
bracket, yeah.
error it is showing is int object is not callable. So actually earlier I had taken len to become a variable. So it is now taking that variable. I mean the value of that was 3. So it is saying that with integer you can't really give any command here. Just 1 minute.
Okay, and if what if we rename the variable length in the previous steps to something else? I think yes, what it says is
The
already
problem
length.
I don't think is with the variable names here. The problem is that I assigned I used the len itself as a variable earlier. So the value assigned to len has become now 4. Now saying that you can't use this variable. So that's very surprising for me because if you see here, it is showing that int object is not callable. It means that I am trying to call a function here with some variable, and the value of len has become 3. So I need to figure
Yeah,
out.
I mean, can we check where in the previous steps we use len as to store something? I think we did something somewhere.
Just let me use this one. This one. It is giving me the same error.
Yes, it's just considering the function as len of name is 3 of name, maybe 3 or 4 of name, because we stored something
Yes,
in the variable.
so that is what the problem is. If I run it again, it should not be.
Can we do control F here in Python scripting?
It's a problem that I need to look into because I have assigned a value to what is a control syntax or a syntax in that one, and then that syntax is not allowing me to work with. I'll get back to you on finding why it is happening. Okay, so we'll just operate right now with is not allowing me to find the value of this one. So we'll just operate with this one and it should work. We'll come back to that why that len command is not working. I'll get back to you. Okay. So we come to the other loop, which is for. Now for does not have this problem of getting into the infinite loop because here we will be defining the how many times it actually needs to run. So let's understand this one. The same thing that we have done here in the while loop, we can do in print. So here we are saying that we need to read it like this, that for every name in names1, so names1 is my list, and we are saying for every name in names1, print the name. Okay. So we don't need to define any number. It will go item by item, item by item. And it first, so for when we say that for every name in names1, it takes the value of the first element. Then it prints here, that is Ram. Or if I run now, there will be 4 of them because that was the earlier. So it goes to the first element, takes the value, assigns that value to a variable called name. And when I say this variable called name, I could, since this is a variable, I could change it to anything and could say that for I is, so I need to give you a print I. So it prints here. So the syntax is saying that for every element in this list, assign the value of the element to I, and then it will proceed for doing whatever you want. So now here, I don't need to put this counter here. It will go element by element, and depending upon how many elements you have. So if I put here for I in names 2, it will print only 3, because in names 2 I have only 3 elements. That's how the for loop works. So for loop, we can work with the list, and then it will always take the go one by one in the list, or the for can work in a over a range, and range is again we can define as starting, ending, and a step. So it works in the same fashion as we had done earlier. So it is the starting value, it is the ending value, and this is the step. So I could as well say 5 to 10 and 2. So I should say print 5, 7, 9. So we are saying do this over a range, but this range is starting at 5, ending at 10, and a step of 2, and 10 is excluded. So now it will go over the range, see the first value in the range, assign it to I, and it is printing I. Okay, so that's how the for loop will work. Or if we don't give this step, then if I don't give this step, it will print all the numbers. As you see that 10 is not printed because 10 is excluded. So that's how we define the range, and we can iterate with a for loop over a range also. Now, when we are doing this iteration, at some point of time, if I want the system to stop doing the operation, then we use break. So for example, here, you can say that for in the range 0 to 10, print I. But if I is equal to 4, then you break. It means that if this condition is met, it will stop operating it. So it will print 0, 1, 2, 3, and then it stops operating. So in certain cases, if you're trying to look for something and you're going over a range, then we need to resort to the break operation. So the loop actually breaks whenever it encounters the syntax break, then the loop will break. The reverse of the break is continue. So it means that if this condition is met, then don't perform the action. So just pass it and continue. So if you see, if I give this condition, then in the range, so if you see here, I can give the range as 0 to 10, or if I just give the range as 10, it will start from 0. Because here the first one gives me the starting point. So the starting point is not defined, it will by default take 0 as the starting point. So I can give the range as 0 to 10, or I can give the range as just 10, or I can give the range as 0, 10, and then step of 2. That's how the ranges are defined. So if I give the step of 2, it will print 0, 2, and 4, and 1 and 3 are not getting printed because we are proceeding in the step of 2. You can also give here starting from 1 to 10, and then it will print 1 and you see here what happened. Because this I is equal to 4 condition was never met. So it goes on and prints until 9. Because in the range I'm giving the step of 2, so it is evaluating 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. 4 never came. So this condition was never encountered, and therefore it did not break. So that's how the break will function. And the opposite of the break is continue. It means that if this condition is met, then continue. And continue will take it back to the for evaluation and not perform the next action. So if we do here, it does not print up to 4. We have given here less than 4. If we give less than equal to 4, it should start from 5. And that's how the continue and the break operation function. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Here we not increase the value of I. Then how it work? I equal to plus 1. We are not doing this.
That's the difference between the while loop and the for loop. So in the for loop, if you see how it is operating, so let's see first time that we used for loop on a list. So names2 is a list, and that has the value of, if you can see here, Sita, Geeta, Nita. These are the 3 elements in the list. Whenever we operate with for, the value which is contained in the range or a list is known. So what it does is that it will first go over the first item in the list, then the second item in the list, and the third item in the list. And we have given it the command to print I. So I has been assigned the value of Sita in the first iteration, Geeta in the second iteration, Nita in the third iteration. So the system will continue to go, it will run over the list one by one. So we don't really need to define that where it has to end. In the while loop, we had to define where it has to end. In the for loop, since we are operating on the list, the system knows that when the list ends, it has to end the operation. So that evaluation is happening on the list. Same thing is happening on the range. So when we say range 5 to 10 with a gap, with a step of 2, what are the elements that this range has? This range has an element of 5, 7, and 9. So it will iterate through that range. So it will first print 5, then 7 and 9, and then it comes to the end of the range automatically. So we don't need to explicitly instruct that where it has to end, because the system now knows where it has to end. Same thing is there with all the other ranges that we have defined. So whenever we work with the for loop, it will expect you to give a list or a range or defined set of value, and then it will iterate over that. And that is the reason that we don't need to have a counter here. Is that clear, Rina?
Yes, yes. On a range or a list, we have to not define.
Yeah.
If simply we do, then we have to do, no? If there is no range, no list,
It will
simply
actually
using
expect.
for loop.
So when we say for I, whenever we start with the for, it will expect for evaluation a range or a.
Okay, that means using for here is a for list or range or like matrix type thing. So
Yes.
okay, thank you, thank you.
So now we took a diversion from to understand a few concepts. We were trying to see that how do we apply this into the backpack problem. So now we have got the value per unit of weight computed, that is there in my table. Now what I do, I think Len will create a problem here also. This is a different worksheet, so that problem will not do. So what we are saying is that now we are defining the limit, which was 20, and then we come to the for loop, where we say, now we follow the same structure. What we are saying is that for every item in range length of df, it means that what would be the length of df here? There are 8 items, so the length of df is 8. Earlier we ran here, so it's 0 and up to 7, so there are 8 items. So it will run over that range. So it will first take the first item. So when we come here, the value of, in the first iteration, the value of I would be 0, because the range, we are just saying range and range of 8. So it will start from 0, it will go until 8. It will go until 7 actually. Then we are saying that take the column weight of the data frame df and identify the ith item. This is what we were doing even in the list. Find out the item at the ith index. Now we are saying that in the weight column of the frame df, locate the ith item and assign that value to weight of I. Is this clear? If we translate this into English, what it is saying that whenever you are doing the translation and if there is an equal to sign, before the assignment, I need to find the value. So it will first compute whatever is the statement after the assignment sign, which is the equal to sign. After the assignment sign, it will first evaluate, and then that value it will assign to the variable which is before the equal to sign. So first we come and evaluate here what is the meaning of this df weight I. So what is df weight? It is saying that in the, if you see here, this is my df data frame, and this one is the, if we just say df weight, let's do it here. If I just print df weight, it shows me only weight column and the index here. So if I just say df weight, it is just the list of values which we have here, and the first item is 0.1, or the item at the 0th index is 0.1, first element is 0.5, second is 5, and so on. So if I say df weight, it is taking this as the list. Okay, and then we are saying that in this list, show me the thing which is at the ith place. So when I do the first iteration, it will give me the value which is available at the 0th place. Is this part clear to all of you, how we are getting the weight I? Okay. Similarly, we get the value, we get the count, we get the items. So I'm just extracting the value from the data frame because we need to do some operation on that one. And then we are saying that available weight limit, now we are computing this available weight limit is equal to the max of whatever is the weight limit. Now the weight limit we have defined here, and we are saying that weight limit is 20. So we are saying that whatever is the total weight limit minus the total weight, and the total weight to start with is 0. So when we do the first iteration, the total weight is 0. So when we come for the first time, the available weight limit is 20 minus 0, which is 20. So I have 20 kg available. Then we are saying that how many items can I select? So the items that I can select is the minimum of whatever is available weight. I divide that by the weight of the individual item. So suppose the total weight available here is 20, and then weight of the item is 5. So I can pick up a maximum of 4 of them. But if the item, if you see here, we are using the min, it means that suppose I can pick up 5, but I have only 3. I can pick up only 3 because the count of I is only 3. But theoretically, I can pick up 5 because the available weight is 20 and the weight of the individual item is, say, 4. Then I can pick up 5 items, but I don't have 5 items. I have only 3 items. So I'll take the minimum of that. I compute that these many items of these many numbers of item I can choose. Once I have chosen, then I will calculate the weight of the chosen items, and then I will add that to my list of selected items. This is what we were doing. So step by step, we are finding how much weight I have available. Then I see that given that weight, how many items I can pick up. And once I pick up the item, I see that total how much weight I have got in my backpack. And then I just store it in a list that which item I have selected. This is what is being done here. Once we do that, then I see that which are the items I have selected, and it shows that we have selected the first item 1, second item 5, third item 3 numbers, and third item 9 numbers. And then I just add it back to my DF. So earlier my DF was only item value, weight count, and so on. Now the selected count has been computed. It shows me that how many of each item I have computed, I have selected. So first item F, I selected 1 number. Why? Because there's only 1 number available here. Item 2, I selected 5 because all the 5 could be accommodated. Item number 3, I could choose only 3 even though 8 was available because it is now exceeding the weight limit. And item number E, I choose 9 of them because here the weight is very small. Having chosen that, I would like to see that how much is the total weight and all those things. So I do certain other computations. And then you see here that I'm able to find the total value of the selected items, which is just a multiplication of the weight into value. Now, this is a command that you will come across, and it's a very useful function, which is called the cumulative sum or cum sum.
Hello.
Yeah.
Literally, what we do for why we are doing not getting.
Why we are doing?
That means what's the question is here? What I have to find out for why not getting that.
Yeah. So the question was, let's get back to the question here. The question was that in the backpack problem, how do I ensure that I fill in the backpack with items so that I can carry the maximum value? And I have a constraint that I can't carry everything. I can carry things only up to 20 kgs. That was the problem. Are we on the same page until here? Is the problem statement clear? That I have several items. I have 8 items here. That is what we said here. I have 8 items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. These are the weight of individual items. This is the value of individual items. And this is the total number of items that I have available. Now I am trying to see that if I have to select items out of this list, I can take only 20 kgs. How do I make a selection out of these items so that I take out the maximum value? So one way was, let's see, if I take only the last item, which is each item is 10 kgs, I can take up only 2 items and the value would be 80,000. If I take just the item G, the value of each of these is 6 kgs, and therefore I can take only 3 of them, and therefore I will have the value of 120,000 or 1,20,000. So the question is that in which combination do I take these items so that I get the maximum value? If that problem statement is clear, then we will come to the solution part. So is the problem statement clear to all of you, what we have been trying to do on the backpack problem?
Yes, now getting.
Okay. So that was the problem, that thief has entered the house. He sees that there are a lot many things, and this is the description of things he sees. And thief says that, I can carry a weight only of 20 kgs, and therefore now how does he make the selection so that he can take out the maximum value from the house? That was the problem. Now, given that problem, this is that how do we solve the problem? The first was that we apply the brute force. We run all kinds of combinations, eliminate those combinations where the weight becomes more than 20, and then we see that in the remaining combinations, whichever is the highest value, I will take it. So that's a good way of doing it, but then it will make us evaluate 288 million combinations, and we said that that's not the right way of doing it. Can we do something better? And then we said that yes, in that case, we will first compute what is the uh, value per unit of weight. So whichever is giving me the highest value per unit of weight, that I will fill first. Then I'll go to the second item, which has the second highest value per unit of weight, and I will fill my bag with those items until I either run out of the item or I run out of the weight limit. That was the 4 steps, and we were saying. So every step is now what we are coding here. So arranging it in the order of the highest value that we had done earlier. Then now we are doing the the remaining 3 things in our solution. Now that is what we are coding for. So having found out what is the, so here we have now found out that which one is having the highest value per unit of weight, and we arranged in that order. So that means I need to select the first one and fill my bag with as much as I can. So I have only one unit here, so I will take that one. Then I'll choose the second item. I'll fill my bag until I either run out of space or I run out of the item. So if you see what is happening here, that I am running out of the item because I have put in all 5 items, but still I have more space. When we come to item C, I am running out of space or out of weight because I can put only 3. If I put the 4th one, then my weight exceeds. That is what we are doing in this. So if you see here, first I am just assigning the values. So this one is just the assigning the values of the weight, value, count, and all these things into some variable so that I can do the computation. This part is the simple part. Let's come to this one. So first I have to evaluate that do I have the space available or not. So I compute how much space I have available, because that will be the key decision point based on which I can say that whether I can put more items or not. What is the available weight limit to me? That is the weight limit which I have assigned here, 20 kg, minus whatever is the weight of things which I have already selected, which I will put into a variable called total weight. Now, I am saying that the available limit can't be negative, and that's why I am putting a max of this or 0. Okay. So first I will compute whether I have limit available or not. Then I am saying that if I have limit available, then compute how many items I can take. That is the count of the selected items. That is the variable name I have given. But what we are saying is that if I have so much limit available, how many items can I pick up? The items I can pick up is available limit divided by weight, or the number of items I have available, whichever is less. So either I run out of the items, or I run out of weight, or I run out of my limit. So suppose the available limit is 20 and the weight is say 2 kgs. So this value will become 10, but suppose I have only 5 items available. So this value will be only 5 because I am taking the minimum of the 2. Now, having got the number of items which I will be choosing, I compute the total weight of those items which I have chosen, because that will now determine how much space I have available when I go to the next item. That is what I am iterating for all the items. And then whatever I have selected, that I am going on appending to. So first I define selected count as a blank list, and to that list I go on adding whatever is the count of the items I have selected. So that's why I have chosen a for loop. Is this clear to all of you? So the main intent was here to demonstrate to you that how do we formulate a problem and how do we use certain very basic functions of
Thank you.
pandas and Python to arrive at that solution. So whatever the steps that we wrote above, the same steps we are putting into our code. Is it clear? Can we proceed? I'll just take maybe 3 or 4 minutes if that is fine with all of you. We have exceeded the time, but so far so good. Or what you can do is that anyway
you.
this is shared with you. I hope that all of you would be able to access that. Try spending some time as to what we are trying to do here. You may come out with a better way of doing it. So I'm not getting any response, so I'm at a loss whether all of you.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So if you got the logic, then if you go through the code, then you will understand that what we are trying to do. So the first we are trying to find out what is the weight, what is the limit is still available to me. Then in the second line, we are saying that if that is the limit available to me, how many items I can pick up. Then I say that having picked those items, what is the total weight that I have already put in my bag. Okay. And then whatever is the number of items, I go on appending to my list, and then I combine that list with my original. So then I convert that list into a data frame. Why we are doing that? Because then we can merge those two data frames. So df was just containing the basic data of the items. Now selected count is showing me how many of these items I have selected. So that operation has been done now. Then we are saying that, okay, now that I have all this data with the combination of different columns, I can find out what is the total cumulative weight, total value, and so on. That is what the operation is being done in this cell. And then you get the output like this. And here we can see that for which item, how many items were selected, what is the weight of that, what is the cumulative weight, and what is the value. So we see that we have been able to fill with 19.85 kgs. Our limit was 20. So now I am having 19.85, and the value of those items is actually 20,43,000, and that's the highest value that we can accommodate out of the given items. So it would be good if you go through at least this part of the code, at your own time, and try to understand it line by line, that what is that we are doing here. Once you have done that, I can assure you that now we will be ready to start working with bigger problems, because we have known how to work with pandas, we have known the basic control flow structures, and then we can take up much larger problems going forward. So all of these are shared already with you, the presentations and the notebooks. And please try to understand this part of the code clearly, and then we will proceed further in the session tomorrow. And yesterday, I think Reena had asked the question that what are the projects we are going to do. So
Right.
maybe we'll cover that as the first thing tomorrow, because I think some of you may have to prepare for your offices, might be starting at 9 or 9:30. So we will cover that tomorrow first thing, and then we'll proceed to the next part of the session tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.
But do go through this code again, because that would be very critical. Now, having understood this one, we will try to proceed a bit faster next week. So come out with all the questions if you have not been able to understand any part of the code until here. Okay. So we'll stop today and then we'll meet again tomorrow at 7.
Okay.
Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.